Hey everyone, you know I'm always on the lookout for those tools that can make learning more efficient.
Right.
Well, get this. Today we're taking a deep dive into something that feels like it's straight out of productivity dreamland. Google's NotebookLM.
Yeah. What's really got me intrigued with this one is how NotebookLM basically becomes your own personal research assistant. Like it's designed to help you navigate and just synthesize information, and it makes that whole research process feel, well, surprisingly intuitive, I'd say.
So for our listeners who might be hearing about NotebookLM for the first time, let's set the scene a bit. Imagine you're tackling a big project, right? You've got articles, research papers, your own notes scattered around, maybe even a bunch of web pages bookmarked. It can get kind of overwhelming, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's exactly where NotebookLM swoops in. It basically gives you a way to take all that stuff, PDFs, Google Docs, even if it's just pasted text, and feed it to an AI.
It's like having this super organized research partner who just sifts through everything and pulls out those golden nuggets.
And the coolest part, you don't need a computer science degree to make it work.
Right. Our main source for this deep dive is a YouTube video from Teachers Tech, and they make it clear that NotebookLM is all about user friendliness.
That's one of the most exciting things about it, I think. It's about empowering
Yeah.
you, the learner, with the power of AI. You don't need to be some tech genius to actually use it.
And speaking of accessibility, all you need to get started is a Google account. It's totally free.
Which is kind of wild when you consider everything it can do,
Yeah.
especially with the emphasis on privacy these days.
Yeah, that was a big one for me.
The video really highlights that anything you upload to NotebookLM stays private. It's not being used to train Google's AI models.
So you can feel good knowing your research is, well, yours.
Exactly.
Okay, but let's get into it. What can you actually do with NotebookLM once you've uploaded your mountain of research?
Well, think about the typical files you work with when you're researching something. PDFs, Google Docs, those slides presentations, even just web links, pasted text. NotebookLM can handle it.
It's like this universal translator for all of your research materials.
Exactly.
But it's not just about keeping your files neat and tidy, right?
Yeah.
It gets way more interesting. What makes NotebookLM really stand out is how it connects the dots between all those different files.
Right. Uncovering those aha moments, those connections that you might have completely missed otherwise.
Like, you're reading a research paper, and suddenly NotebookLM's saying, hey, remember that thing you jotted down in your notes weeks ago?
The thing you probably would have totally forgotten about if you were just relying on your own brain to make that link.
Talk about gaining new perspectives. And the video mentions something called contextualized summaries. Can you unpack that a bit?
Of course. So picture this. You're working with a really dense research paper, right? NotebookLM can actually give you a super concise summary of that paper, highlighting the key takeaways.
So it's like Spark Notes, but for, serious research.
Even better than Spark Notes. Think of it this way. Within that summary, you'll find these clickable key topics.
Clickable. Wait, so I can just click and jump right to that specific section in the original document.
Exactly. No more endless scrolling trying to find that one quote.
That alone is a game changer. Oh my gosh, the amount of time I've wasted doing exactly that. And speaking of quotes, how does NotebookLM handle those? I always worry about.
Oh, it makes pulling out direct quotes super easy. You can grab the exact quote you need with the proper citation.
So it helps avoid any accidental plagiarism?
Exactly. And it gets to another concern that sometimes comes with the AI, the whole issue of hallucinations.
Okay, so for anyone who's not familiar with that term, what exactly are we talking about when we say AI hallucinations?
So essentially, it's when an AI generates information that, sounds plausible, but it's not actually backed up by any real data.
It's like the AI is making things up, even though it's not necessarily intentional.
Yeah, exactly. It's an unintended consequence of how some AI models are trained. But with NotebookLM, since it's pulling quotes directly from your sources, you can be sure it's accurate.
Okay, that is reassuring, especially when accuracy is key. But let's say I've gone through the summaries, I've got my key quotes, but I still have questions. That's where the interactive chat feature comes in, right?
Spot on. This is the part where you can have a real conversation with the AI about your materials. You ask questions, and NotebookLM generates answers, but it's only using the info you've given it.
So it's not just summarizing, it's engaging with your research. This is blowing my mind. And we haven't even gotten to the study hack features.
These are what make it a game changer, especially for anyone who's a student or just a lifelong learner.
Let's start with the one that made me do a little happy dance. Automated note-taking. No more frantic scribbling.
It really is a game changer, isn't it? Think about all the mental energy we use just trying to capture everything while we're reading or listening to something. NotebookLM takes on that burden so you can actually focus on engaging with the material itself.
I'm already imagining how much more I could absorb if I wasn't constantly worried about missing a detail. But if NotebookLM is doing all the note-taking, does that mean we never actually have to write anything down again?
That's a great question, and it highlights how NotebookLM is meant to enhance your learning, not replace it. So while NotebookLM can handle the, bulk note-taking, there's still something to be said about the act of writing things down ourselves.
Oh, definitely. I've always found I remember things better if I've written them down by hand.
There's actual science behind that. Writing engages different parts of the brain than typing, leads to better memory retention. But where NotebookLM shines is its ability to capture and organize information at a scale we simply can't match.
Right. Like it's about finding that sweet spot, using NotebookLM for the large-scale stuff, but also sticking with those active learning strategies that work for us.
Exactly. Leveraging the best of both worlds, human intelligence and artificial intelligence.
Totally. It's all about working smarter, not harder, right?
Right.
Letting the AI do its thing so our brains can focus on the good stuff.
Right. And speaking of working smarter, let's dive into one of NotebookLM's features that really embodies that idea: guided question prompts.
Okay, yes. Tell me more about this. How do these prompts work, and how can they help someone like me who, wants to make sure I'm really grasping the material?
So think about it this way. When you're studying, what do you usually do to make sure you're not just passively reading, but, actively engaging with what you're learning?
Well, I usually try to come up with questions about what I'm reading, or I use flashcards to quiz myself.
There you go. That active recall is so important for really cementing those concepts in your memory. And that's exactly what NotebookLM's guided question prompts are designed to do.
So instead of having to come up with all those questions myself, NotebookLM generates them for me based on what I'm researching.
Exactly. It analyzes your materials and create these really targeted questions designed to test your understanding, really make sure you're getting those key takeaways.
That's amazing. Like having a built-in study buddy who knows exactly what to ask to make sure I've really got it.
And it goes beyond just memorization, too. These questions are meant to encourage that deeper level of thinking, making connections between different ideas, considering other perspectives.
Oh, I love that. So it's about deepening your understanding, not just cramming information in there. Okay, so we've got automated note-taking, guided question prompts. What other study hack features does NotebookLM have up its sleeve?
How about customizable output formats?
Ooh, okay.
Because, think about it, what good is all this amazing research and analysis if you can't even access it in a way that makes sense for you?
That's a great point. Everyone learns differently. Some people are visual learners, some people prefer to listen, some like things organized a certain way.
Exactly. That's where customizable output formats come in. Say you're researching, let's say, the history of a particular scientific discovery, you could actually have NotebookLM generate a timeline highlighting all those key milestones, which would be perfect for visual learners.
Right. You'd be able to see that progression of events, how each discovery built on the last.
Or imagine you're preparing a presentation on a complex topic. NotebookLM could create like an FAQ document based on your research. That way you'd be prepared for those tough questions.
So smart. Instead of trying to come up with answers on the spot, you'd have this handy document to refer to. I love how NotebookLM just takes care of all that organization, the formatting, so I can just focus on the content itself.
Exactly. It's about making your research work for you, not the other way around. And speaking of making research more engaging, remember how we were talking about different learning styles?
Yeah. You were saying how some people are visual learners, some are auditory learners, and so on.
Well, what if I told you that NotebookLM actually has a feature that caters specifically to auditory learners? And I'm not just talking about the ability to, listen to your notes.
Okay, now you've got my attention. What could be more engaging than listening to your notes?
How about listening to a podcast generated by AI based on your research?
Wait, hold on. Are you saying that NotebookLM can actually create a podcast? Like with actual voices and
You
everyone?
heard that right. They call it the AI Podcast Surprise, and it is pretty mind-blowing.
I have to admit, I was skeptical at first. An AI generating a podcast. That sounds like something straight out of science fiction.
Right. But the video actually includes a clip of one of these AI-generated podcasts, and honestly, it's shockingly realistic.
Really? Like, do the voices actually sound human?
They do. No robotic monotone here. They have
Yeah.
natural inflections, even a bit of personality.
That's incredible. So it's not just like reading off bullet points from my research. These AI hosts are having an actual conversation.
Yes, and it's not just surface level stuff either. They're discussing the material in depth, making connections, even asking each other thought-provoking questions.
Okay, color me intrigued. What would you even do with a podcast generated from your research, though?
Picture this. You're commuting to work, you're at the gym, maybe doing chores around the house. Instead of just listening to music, you could be listening to a podcast that's teaching you about the topic you're researching.
So it's like having this personalized audio textbook, but, way more engaging.
Precisely. And it's not just for you either. You can download the AI-generated podcast as an MP3 and share it with others.
Wait, really? I could share this AI-powered knowledge bomb with my friends, colleagues, whoever.
Yep.
That's game-changing. Imagine the possibilities for collaboration, knowledge sharing.
Right. Think about it. You could send your colleague a podcast that summarizes a 100-page report you read.
Yeah.
Students could create podcasts from their class notes to study.
This feature alone could revolutionize how we consume and share information.
It really is exciting. And it speaks to the incredible potential of AI to make knowledge more accessible to everyone.
It really feels like we're on the verge of like a whole new era of learning, where knowledge is more accessible, more engaging than ever.
Yeah, it's super exciting.
Yeah.
But like with any powerful tool, you got to, approach it thoughtfully.
Right. With great power comes great responsibility, all that jazz. So as we're kind of wrapping up our deep dive into NotebookLM, what are some of the things we should keep in mind? What questions should we be asking ourselves?
Well, for me, it always comes back to this. How do we make sure that we're using these AI tools to actually enhance our own abilities, not replace them entirely?
Right. We don't want to just like outsource all of our thinking to AI, right?
Exactly. NotebookLM is this amazing tool for research and learning, but it can't replace that human element, critical thinking, creativity, Those things are still so important for deep understanding.
So it's all about finding that balance, using AI to work alongside us, not for us, basically.
Right. Exactly. We need to make sure we're still, using those active learning strategies that help us really internalize and synthesize information.
Like taking our own notes, asking questions, having those aha moments when something finally clicks in our brains.
Yes, exactly. Those are the moments when real learning happens.
Absolutely. So as we kind of look ahead to this future where AI is becoming more and more integrated into our lives, what excites you the most?
What really gets me excited is the potential for personalized learning experiences. Imagine a world where everyone has access to the tools and resources they need to learn effectively, no matter what their background is or their learning style.
I love that. And with these tools like NotebookLM starting to emerge, we're getting a glimpse of what that future could look like.
Exactly. It's pretty amazing.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to hand it over to our listeners.
Yeah, definitely.
What are your thoughts on NotebookLM and the future of AI and learning? What excites you? What concerns you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, thanks for joining us for another deep dive.